Makes sense. Oh, and we're being recorded because my boss remembered to hit record. All right, folks, we've got people joining us. We've got Jack Skelly is with us. Steve Frederick, yeah, of course. Lachey Z. Let's see, Jack. Karen Regenbaum, class of '83 from Washington, D.C. Dave Simmons from Paul Smith.
Hey,
Hey,
Zoot
cool,
Simmons.
Zoot Simmons.
Ah, Andrea, my
Dewey.
hero.
Bruce. Do you know Bruce?
No,
73.
72.
Or 72. You're 70.
I got there in 73. Jack, of course, I had in 2 classes, my first and my next.
Anyone else
Tammy
having
Walensky.
audio difficulty?
Oh, Tammy. Oh,
No, you good, Steve? Well, okay.
Ah,
Paul Pillis from Arlington, Texas. Strange. I know a guy by that name who lives in Gabriel's.
I met Paul Pillis in his first moments at Paul Smith's in the summer of '67 when I was working in the snack bar, as a matter of fact.
No kidding.
Yeah, yeah.
Very cool.
So he doesn't want to admit it, but I was at Paul Smith's before he was.
Oh, I see.
Was he shy and quiet back then too, Bob?
No, he wasn't. He wasn't the man he later became, but I don't ever recall Paul as being shy and quiet.
Okay, we've got quite a few. Someone's joining us by phone. Not 891. I'm not sure who that is. I don't recognize it.
518.
Amy, is Jay with you? That's probably her answering me. Maybe we're
Oh,
Jen Root, yay! Jen Hill, I mean, really. Some other people that have logged on. Homer Reese. Okay, Jim Voorhees is with us.
Oh. Oh,
John Bridges.
yeah, that's. Oh yeah, John Bridges. I haven't heard from him in a long time. Good guy.
Karen Frank, you remember Karen?
Yes, she never gets in touch.
I know.
Always says, John,
We'll get coffee. I don't even know if she drinks coffee. Oh, Peter's on too. They live in the same house. What's that about?
Don't ask.
All right. All right, folks. Well, I think we're just about ready here. So tonight we're going to talk about Winter Carnival with Mr. Winter Carnival.
Okay.
I'm not used to having the person I'm talking to sitting next to me, so
That's
it's
not
weird.
my problem.
That's not your problem.
No.
Thanks for that. Oh, Jay and Nathaniel both still on the roads. Oh no, they're still on the roads. North Carolina. All right. Jen Root, great to see you. Oh. Okay, we're really ready now. So I'm going to turn it over to Bob. I swear I am. I can't get rid of Steve for some reason. That's all right. There we go. Our slideshow has begun. Welcome everybody to Smitty's Story Hour featuring Bob Seidenstein. The applause. You can't hear them, but they're applauding.
That's okay. Yes. Save it for a thunderous ovation at the end.
Certainly.
Actually, when Heather asked me to do this, she said, the story hour, and she wanted something on Winter Carnival, which is to me pretty vague. It's like, well, what? And she's like, well, it's up to you. And I think, by count, I think I've been to 70 of them. Okay. As a tyke, I'm from town, right? So I obviously don't remember the first few, but I think I can remember age 4, the carnival. And then, of course, I was gone from town for several years. And then there's some later carnivals that I can't remember for different reasons, but or at least parts of them seem to come and go. So I was like, okay, so you know what, we're going to talk about carnivals. But then what I decided to do, this is Paul Smith's story hour, right? And I decided to do a combination of Winter Carnival and Paul Smith. And I have one story that ties them both in, I think. But this takes place, I can't remember exactly, but it's mid 70s, I'm going to say. It's back in the 70s, mid 70s. And people that were around, Jack Skelly and Paul and that bunch, I mean, it was a different world. Paul Smith was, maybe the world was a different world, but Paul Smith was a really different world because it was probably 40 years behind the rest of the world anyway, and in a good way. And one thing, well, a couple things, but one thing about school was it was rife with characters. Okay, I mean, we had characters, and there were faculty characters, there were student characters, there were even administration characters, if you can imagine that. And the school itself, I mean, remember, it was Wild West. You know, there was no security, there were no RAs. Okay, so it was kind of like the lunatics running the asylum, and funny, just off the wall, a lot of stuff. Plus, it was overwhelmingly foresters back then. Okay, I think about 75% of the students were foresters, and they were mostly the techies, the 2-year guys. They were women, and although they didn't really appear till much later, but you know, they were just a whole different breed. And they were real workers, and the hoteliers, because we had the hotel then, and so they worked their butts off too. So that was a great personality to have as students because they worked. Now, obviously, nobody came to Paul Smith for English. In fact, they probably came to Paul Smith because they hated English, but they did the work. You know, they were just a good bunch. Now, the characters, getting back to characters, faculty characters, so you got mostly foresters, right? And the two prime forestry studs were Gould Hoyt and George Peroni. Okay, the whole campus knew Hoyt and Peroni. I'd say, well, George was lower keyed, but you know, Gould was always loved an audience. I mean, he could storm the place, and so charismatic, you know, characters. And there was something else, but there was a third guy in forestry who was every bit as much a character as those two, but he was much lower key. That was Ed Woodward. I called him Woody, and he was my pal. Okay, so Ed and I, long story short, we hung out probably 3 or 4 days a week from 73 when I started teaching there till he died in 1980. And he had a rather fascinating history, but he graduated from Annapolis in 1930, and then he was in submarines in China. 3 years in China, then he was on neutrality, all kinds of stuff. He was a Commodore, actually, which is a wartime rank, and basically they give it to someone who has enormous skill but doesn't kiss ass. Okay, so he never made, it's wartime, so after the war you revert to your previous rank, but he had the responsibility of an admiral. He had a flotilla of 9 destroyer escorts, and he said never lost one. And Woody was something else. I mean, I said he was low key and quiet and reserved, and he had no use for small talk. He just didn't visit like that. He wasn't, you know, he wasn't like that. And I think he just gave off a vibe that kids didn't approach him lightheartedly. Like you could talk to George, and you could talk Gould, certainly you could rap to, but Woody just wasn't like that. And probably the quintessential Woody story was with Jack Skelly, the one I like to tell. And Jack was very polite. He was a very nice guy, and he, I think, was a first semester freshman. So Woody always had a cigar. Okay, always had a cigar, and it was never lit. Okay, we didn't know if. So that is one of these weird things. Your students, does he ever smoke? Yeah. So Jack is going in Pickett Hall, and Woody's coming out, and Jack says, "Excuse me, Professor Woodward, but do you ever light your cigars?" And Woody looked at him, and he said, "Why, my boy, haven't you read the Surgeon General's latest report on the dangers of smoking?" And just kept walking. And that was Woody. He didn't answer the question exactly, and he blew off Jack. And Jack, of course, is standing there clueless, still not having any idea if Woody ever smoked. And Woody didn't care. And so that's kind of the way he was, but he was brilliant is the other thing. Now you got to understand that this is back, Woody was my internet. There was no internet. And in order to get information, you had to dig it up and you had to get the books. It was all hard copy, right? Or magazines. And if you didn't have access, and so you had to always remember where you got something. That was the other thing. And so if I had a question, any kind of question, historical, whatever it was, that asked Woody, and he almost always had the answer. And yeah, he's just a fascinating guy, but low key, modest, very reserved, like I said. And the other thing about Woody is he had wisdom. Okay, so it wasn't just he was smart. So I could talk to him about life issues, and he was very, I'd say terse, but he was a man of very few words. He never expounded on anything. So he could dismiss stuff in a sentence, you know. But if I had questions or whatever it was, it could be moral dilemmas, whatever. And he always pretty much came through. Not pretty much, he always came through. But I remember, you know, for example, there was another guy, Charlie Allen, taught English, was a lovely guy. And was like my mentor. And he, one time we were talking about, so I was having some hassle in a classroom or whatever it was. And he said, well, he said, just remember that not all education takes place in a classroom. And oh, Jesus, he's got that right. And then I said that to Woody about something, and Woody said, almost no education takes place in a classroom. And, you know, on the surface, that sounds like, oh, you know, that's pretty cool. But when you really think about it, and I'm thinking of it from a young teacher's perspective, it's like, well, what am I going to do in a classroom? You know, what do I do that's really meaningful, or how do you reach people, or what's significant? I mean, you know, what are you doing? Okay. And not that I had the answer for another 25 or 30 years, but certainly I was asking myself that. But that was kind of, you know, that was how Woody would sum things up. And the other thing about Woody is when he was condescending to me, okay, when I either asked him something that was obvious or he was about to impart some sort of lesson, he'd call me Bobby Boy. Okay, it was, I don't think he even called me by name any other time, but it was when he began with Bobby Boy, you knew that he was gonna pull me up short. Now, then we got the students. The students. I mean, I'll put it this way, that there was never a time that I dreaded going in on Monday. I mean, it was wild. And then the next night was Thursday. It was really fun. And they were just a really astounding bunch in a lot of ways. I think my phrase for them was creative mutants. Okay, that they were there for their own particular reasons, and they were enormously skilled in all kinds of ways. If you look at the old yearbooks or the newspaper, see the drawing that they could do, and they did crafts, and if they had an open mic, I mean, it was like 3 hours long, and you had all varying degrees, but you had some enormous musicians. Matt Crane was one, and Grady Thompson was another. I had everything, I mean, in that sense, and they were really a fun bunch. And now Tim Vale, he was in my first class and my second class, my first semester, first class, and he's a dear friend of mine now, but he probably aged me about 50 years in my first semester, which I was 25 when I started teaching. So I guess I've now caught up with it finally. But it just, you never knew what the heck was going to go on. Okay. It was just funky and fun. But as I said, they did their work. And I can say I liked, not just in the 70s, but I mean, I liked my students. I genuinely liked my students, whatever other issues popped up. But and I think they knew that, you know, it wasn't,
Really?
you know, I wasn't out there to you know, win friends and influence students, but I did indeed like them. And but every now and then there was an exception, and that's who's starring in this one. And there was this one guy, I don't remember his name for obvious reasons probably, and he was just one of the more negative human beings I ever had in the classroom, if not the most. And yeah, right up there. And he was just this kid, he was a sophomore, and I can't remember the class, but he didn't like anything. He didn't like me. He didn't like the class. He didn't like English. But then again, he didn't like his other classes. He didn't like Paul Smith's. He didn't like the food. He didn't like the country. Just a real pain in the prat. And but he wasn't disruptive. He was just negative, you know. So he did the eye rolls. You know, I'd say something was like, you know, or like, you know, like what kind of drooling idiot am I? Be standing in front of a classroom. But he wasn't, like I said, he was sat in the back of the room. He wasn't disruptive. So it's okay. I could deal with it, you know. But just that if the made for TV movies or the movies about teaching, I hate movies about teaching, by the way, because they have nothing, like I hate Navy movies because they never have anything to do with the Navy or with teaching. Okay. It's all crap. My brother's a doctor. He hated doctor movies too. But anyhow, if life were one of those movies on teaching, then somehow that kid and I, you know, I would have figured out, I would have unlocked the secret to that kid's psyche, you know, and halfway through the semester, he'd be like reading the works of Milton. I never read the works of Milton. They're unreadable, but, you know, he would be doing that, and he's, you know, on his way to writing a novel about science fiction thing, and he'd go on to become a published author. And when he won the Pulitzer Prize, you know, he'd credit me, Bob Seidenstein, as the man that launched him on that career. Well, that's the movie. The reality was the kid didn't like me. I didn't particularly care for him, and that was about it. Okay, so all right, you know, Winter Carnival back then is different from now. Now it's 10 days. It's a real family event, you know, and just activity after activity. Well, back in those days, it was 4 days. That's it. Thursday was coronation. They had some events, but not a lot. Thursday was the coronation, Thursday night, and then it was done on Sunday with the fireworks. And now back then, you got to understand, Winter Carnival was a real booze fest. Okay, that you had roughly 35 bars, which in a town of 5,000 is really cooking. You know, it was left over from the TV days, and you also have to consider it's an 18th state, right? So the drinking age was 18, and you had that population, which is North Country Community College and Paul Smith's, and the 18-year-olds in town. So now you've got an extra 2,000 kids, not to mention, and adults. Everyone went out. The real night was Friday night. Okay, that was the pub crawl, and Saturday you had the parade. People went out after the parade, maybe had a drink or something. Then it was like private parties, and the only people that were out on Saturday night were grim. I mean, you know, they're just, you didn't go out on Saturday night unless you were really pathetic, you know. But Friday night, Jesus, you know, and the streets, you tell people, they don't believe it. At 1 a.m, the streets were packed with people just walking all over, and in a very nice way. I mean, it was people knew how to behave, you know. I mean, I never saw a fight. I'm sure there probably was one, but the judge, I knew him. He was a judge for 35 years, and he said he never had anyone that came in that had been in a fight in a Winter Carnival. But so people knew how to behave. But the bars, and they were so packed that you couldn't get in. You had to go from bar to bar to find one you could go in. So that was Friday, right? Then Saturday you got the parade. And the other thing with Winter Carnival is it was like the unofficial Paul Smith's alumni weekend, okay? Because all these people had come back for Carnival, you know, alums, and it doesn't happen now because it was an 18th state, right? So all the kids had been going out to the bars, so they all had that sense of what went on. Now, you know, it's a very different thing. And so Paul Smith's got, and I can tell you Paul Smith's story. I think it was Mark Oberus. I was in the water hole. Jesus, I don't know. It was in the 80s maybe, and maybe it was after that. And it was Friday night. It was jammed, and the phone rang. I was right by the phone. I picked it up. It was this guy Mark Oberus, who I had as a student, and he was calling from Alaska. Okay, couldn't make it for Carnival, and he was asking me. He asked for Stacy Allott, as a matter of fact. Who's there? And I found some guy he knew in the bar, so he got to talk to him. But that's kind of the way it was. It was really great. The other thing is about Winter Carnival is the big Saranac Lake reunion. Okay, everyone poured out on Winter Carnival. So I'd go out on Winter Carnival and I'm seeing my second grade teacher, guy I was in second grade with, people that lived everywhere. I mean, I came back from Carnival from California one year. Okay, I mean, that was it, And so you just had this huge swarm of people. Now, here you go. All right, so Friday night, before the Friday night of Carnival, I would give my kindly old Prof Seidenstein rap, okay, to my classes. And I would tell them, okay, it's Carnival, right? So 3 things, all right, 3 things you really want to pay attention to. One is, don't drink alone. Whatever you do, it's stupid to drink alone anyway. You really get in trouble. But in this weather, you can die. I know someone that actually did, okay? And tell them that. So that's rule number 1. They didn't have designated drivers. Like toward the end of my illustrious career, you almost never heard of a kid driving drunk. They always had a DD. They didn't have that then. And you had kids get killed in car wrecks fairly often too. And I would tell them, second, you don't drive if you're drinking, okay? You find someone else to drive, even if you think it's just like a mild buzz, because you're going from Paul Smith's to town to Paul Smith's. And guess who's out on Friday night on the roads going to Paul Smith's? It's either drunks or troopers, okay? You really don't want that one to go down, all right? And then the third thing was, do not drink on the streets during the parade, okay? There's an open container law. You don't drink on the streets, all right? So then this kid I'm telling you about, he's like, well, I was here last year and there are people drinking all over. I saw it. They're all over town drinking. And I was like, yes, you're right. But guess what? Guess who they were? He's sort of like, and I said, they're not like you because they're townies. That's who's drinking on the streets. If you're a townie, you can drink on the streets. But you're not a townie, you're a college kid. You can't. That's not right. And it was a Woody answer. Woody's great response was, no, you're right. It's not right, but that's the way it is. Okay. Well, I said, I don't care what you think. I didn't dismiss him, but I said, look, think about it, will you? All the cops are townies. Okay. And, we're all like in this isolated area. And so, all right, there's this guy drinking on the street. Is the cop going to bust him? No. Why not? That's his hockey coach from Pee Wee hockey. Okay, well, how about that guy over there? He's drinking on the streets. Is the cop gonna? Oh no, why not? Because he's married to his aunt. Okay, well, how about that other guy that's drinking on the street? That the other cop is no, because that guy went to that guy's grandmother's house when his furnace broke down. Her furnace broke down and repaired it in the middle of the night and wouldn't charge her. Okay, this guy showed up at his stepfather's calling hours. All this sort of thing. Everyone's connected, but you're not. Okay. And I said, there's only one reason that God made college students for Winter Carnival, and that's to get busted and pay fines. Okay. You're going to fill the coffers of Saranac Lake with your stupidity. So I'm just telling you, do not have a drink on the streets Winter Carnival. Okay. That's simple. You can drink in the bars, you can drink in the parking lot. You can go to the railroad station. And actually, you can drink in Upper Broadway, okay, like by the Vets Club and that, because there's hardly anyone there during the parade. They don't care. Cops aren't up there. And the other thing about the cops is they're pretty nice guys, but they're exhausted. All right, the cops all hate Winter Carnival, right? They're out since Thursday night. They haven't gotten any sleep, and all they're doing is dealing with idiots or looking to see if someone is an idiot or who's passed out or whatever. Okay, it's a whole lot of hassles for those guys. And the cops, my friends, the guys I went to high school with, okay, when they retire, they do not come in for Winter Carnival. They hate Winter Carnival. They're like, it's like emblazoned in their psyches. It's imprinted. It's hardwired. Call it what you want. They cannot even stand the idea. There's one cop actually who I went to high school with, and he said I was the only person he wished happy Winter Carnival to, because he knew how much I loved Winter Carnival, but he hated Winter Carnival. And the freezing and the whole schmear. So that's what I tell us, all right. And the other kids, I don't know, do they listen? They're polite, and, I'm trying to give them heartfelt advice, because you don't want them, they're going to if you get busted, all right, first of all, you got a fine. Second, you got a record. Okay. And I don't know how it goes now, but I had friends that got busted when I was in college that they couldn't get in the Navy. Okay. It was during Vietnam, but you know, they had a draft, but Navy just wasn't taking guys that got busted for DWI or anything because they had their choice. So you just don't want that on your record, right? And as I said, it's going to cost money and it's going to be a hassle, and your parents are going to think you're a blazing idiot, and on and on. Okay, now we get to Saturday and it's before the parade. Now let's go around, walk around town. And parade used to be, the crowds, they were like 5 deep. If you were my height, you never saw a parade. You know, you saw the back of every schmuck's head, but you didn't see a parade. Anyhow, so
Is that why you're marching it now?
yeah, it's the only
Me
way
too,
it's the only way to do it. So I go to town, not early, but certainly before the parade, and see who you're running into, and go to the water hole, and you know, the hotel up in the boathouse, that was another big place for the alums, and just walk around town running into people, right? And my one friend from high school, a cop, he was always at the intersection by the town hall, hating every second of it. And they also had cop hats in those days with no earmuffs. You remember those? So they're freezing their ears off, and Jesus, you know, poor buggers. But anyhow, so the parade, I don't know, parade starts at 1 or something. And maybe it's getting to be like 12:20 somewhere. So there are people now that are lying, you know, getting in the crowd to watch the parade. And I'm at the water hole, not in the water hole, because you can't get in the water hole. And I'm standing on the street, and I look across the street, and who is standing in front of Rice's furniture store? Okay, but that kid, okay, that thought none of this was fair. And what is he doing? He's drinking a beer. He's standing there drinking a beer. He's got a can of beer on the street in front of Rice's furniture, which is about 30 yards from the town hall, which is where the police station is. So the cops are always coming out of the police station and going in on Carnival on parade day, right? It looks like bees in a hive. Zip, zip, coming out, zip, zip. All right, so this guy is standing there, and I'm looking, and I'm just like, it's kind of like watching two 747s collide over, you know, over the Paul Smith's quad or something, when we used to have a quad. So anyhow, I'm thinking, Jesus, I don't believe this one. And he's standing there, and he's, you know, swilling his beer and sort of being too cool for words. Sure enough, 2 cops, guys I went to high school with, nice guys, come walking out of the police station, and he's standing right there. And they go over to him, and the one cop says something to him, and I know exactly what he's saying to him. You know what he's saying to him? Get rid of your beer, okay? Because they don't want to bust people either. It's paperwork. They got to hassle. So it's just much, they don't want to do it. They really don't want to do it. But the thing is, they're going to do it, especially right before the parade, because I think it's what's called an object lesson, okay? In other words, everyone that sees this putz get busted, except townies, because we're not going to get busted, but everyone else, this is college students and such, see a guy get busted, then they're maybe going to be cool, okay? Because, well, this guy is not cool. So the cop says something to him. He says something to the cop, and I know he's telling him to toss out his beer because there's a garbage can about 5 feet away or 10 feet away from me, and the cop is pointing at it. And now the kid is talking to the cop, and instead of what he should be saying, which is, yes, officer, I'm terribly sorry. I'm gonna throw it out right now. And I promise never to do anything like this again, honest to God, and cross himself and, you know, show his lucky penny and God knows what else. No, what he's doing is he's talking to the cop, and what he's saying is probably, I don't know this, but it's something to the effect that he's got rights, you know. Where does it say in the Constitution that you can't drink a beer on the street if you want? And he's a sovereign citizen, sick of pigs and crazy. And that's it. Next thing I know, the cop knocks the beer out of his hand, grabs him by the sleeve. The other cop grabs him by the other sleeve, and they haul him away so fast his feet are dragging. He can't even walk, okay? Because the cop shop, as it says, 25 yards, but they've had it. Drag him off. It's like, whoa. I'm standing there, and then I'm sort of thinking, well, on the one hand, Schadenfreude, the German word for taking delight in the misery of others. And so, on the one hand, I think, well, all right. So, that's that John Lee Hooker blues song, serves you right to suffer. But then I think, oh, geez, gosh, I start to have second thoughts, and I think, well, is there something I could do? I mean, should I do something? Because, I know the cops. And once they haul him down there, they're not going to let him go. But what they're probably going to do, because he's a putz, this kid, is they're going to do the stacking. So they're going to charge him with like 3 things. He's going to get open container, obstruction of justice, interfering with a police officer, something like that. So now he's going to have 3 charges, and he's going to get fined up the yin yang. Okay, it's going to be a real hassle. Plus, they're going to keep him in jail overnight. They're not going to let him go on his own recognizance just because he's hassled them, right? You can't blame him. So I'm thinking, geez, and no one wants. If you got half a brain, it may be a great story when you get to be older, but you don't want to spend a night in jail, And I'm thinking, oh, geez, should I go over and, could I get him released in my, for me? And then I'm thinking, Jesus, do I want to be responsible for this guy? And the other thing, and I'm thinking that as an educator, to be honest, talking about all education doesn't take place in a classroom, is what is he going to learn? Okay. In other words, if I go over and intercede, is he going to think, wow, okay, he helped me out, and now I realize I shouldn't do this sort of thing? And I don't think this guy has that personality. I think he's, if I went over and got him out, he'd probably just think I was a fool or something, or he deserved it, or what the heck, or the cops were idiots. I was like, so I don't want to interfere with any of that, but I feel sort of bad, And then I realized he's going to spend the night in jail, and then on Sunday, the judge is they bring in all these luckless puds that are, all busy streaking in the, up and down, the water hole, or draining the vein in the Newberry's parking lot, smoking a joint, in back of the hardware, whatever. So they're all, if you read Winter Carnival, if you read the Monday Enterprise, it's like, it used to be, it'd be like 150, okay, of all these idiots that got busted, on whenever, but over the weekend. So the judge is going to be they'll convene court, and then, assess whatever it is, and then they'll let him go. And I know the judge. I knew him really well ever since childhood, and he's like kind of a friend and a good guy. And then I'm thinking, well, should I call him up and tell him to give this guy a break? And I feel bad on the one hand, because I don't want to interfere with anything that, that they're doing. I don't want to, and I don't like it when other people do it, but I'm trying to think of, maybe give this kid a break or something or other, but I'm like, yeah, I don't do it. Okay. I don't do anything. And so by Monday, I'm feeling morally conflicted. It's like, it's very uncomfortable Sunday night for me, thinking, did I do the right thing, or what is the right thing, or I just don't know. And could I have helped him out? Should I have helped him out? Because part of it is really an issue to me, because I don't like him. Okay, so if I really liked the kid, I probably would have been down there, okay, and said, look, he's one of my students. He's a good kid. He's just an idiot, and go easy on him. But so I got that whole thing right, and it's a real human dilemma there of some sort. And of course, I go talk to Woody, and I tell him the story, and Woody says, well, what's your problem? And I said, well, I really wanted to make sure that, now I think about, that justice was done. And Woody, in his very succinct way, says, what he got was justice. What he wanted probably was mercy. And that was that was kind of the end of that episode. And Perfect Ed Woodward. And I'd like to end with a joke. I don't know if anyone ever heard it, but it's along the same lines. And it's about this guy. It's a flood, right? Big flood. And it comes in this guy's house. And so he goes up to the second floor, and it's up on the second floor. And he goes to the third floor. Finally ends up on the roof, right? And water is still pouring down, and water is getting higher. And he's religious. This guy really is a religious guy. I mean, he's got a personal relationship with God. So he's praying like crazy. And he knows that God is going to save him. So this big tree comes by and bumps into the house. He looks at it, goes away. He keeps praying. And then after that, this boat comes by with a bunch of people. And they're like, hey, we'll give you a ride, And he goes, no, it's okay. God's going to take care of me. So God, I'm praying. God's going to take care of me. So they take off. Water's getting even higher. Now the helicopter from the National Guard shows up. And they got their bullhorn. He's like, no, it's okay. It's okay. God's going to take care of me. He's praying like crazy. So helicopter takes off. Water gets higher. Washes him off the roof and drowns him. Dead. Gone. So next step, he's in heaven, right? And he's pretty ticked off. So he sees God and he says, I don't get this. Here, my whole life, I've gone to church. I pray all the time. I get tithe. I do all that stuff. And you let me down. You let me die. God says to him, I sent a tree, I sent a boat, and I sent the army. So what the hell more do you want? So there's my story that's kind of like, don't push your limits on the planet Earth. And that was my little morality tale of Winter Carnival combined with old Paul Smith's.
Very nice. Does anyone have any questions for Professor Seidenstein? I can't. Oh, there we go. That is the right one.
Oh, Schadenfreude. Okay. What's that? What?
Pleasure derived from misfortunes of others.
Yeah.
That was from Mark Caulfield in Connecticut.
Okay. Oh, Chris. Oh, Schultz and Dooley. Well, thank you. Glad you spotted Schultz and Dooley, Chris. Utica Club, I think, right?
Hank Witt, New York State Trooper. He was a hard ass.
Oh, that's Jane.
Jane Hoyt, yeah.
Yes, and Hank Witt's wife, Wendy, worked.
What are the brothers up to for this parade?
Oh, that's Zoot Simmons.
It sure is.
Hey, wait, can he talk or what? I don't know. Or you just type it in? I don't know how this works.
Well,
hey, if you want to know what we're up to in the parade, you can show up at Hyde's and be in the parade with us. Okay, but what we're up to, since you asked so politely, is Renee, hi. Is our theme this year? It's 80s is the carnival, which I think is just stupid. The 80s, for Christ's sake. But anyhow, what? Nothing. 80s.
We did the 60s.
The 60s things happened. The 80s, forget it. It was just mass anesthesia. Anyhow,
okay, moving on.
Yeah, not moving on. So what we're doing, since you asked, Dave, is our theme is slap happy hicks with slapstick shticks. Okay, that's what it is. Makes sense? Oh, what was that?
Jen Root.
Wait, what's Jen?
Does Bobby S ever age?
Oh, you should talk to my cardiologist about that. The answer is yes.
Still have the ice castles?
Yes. No, just the ice. It's actually, hold on, John. Yes, it's a palace, not a castle. And you want to know the difference? That's because Don Duso, the guy that was Mr. Winter Carnival for 6,000 years, and in fact, when he shuffled off this mortal coil, they had, if you'll recall, hit the ice, the thing that saw that
big
made,
machine.
Yeah, that they saw the ice with. It was on a trailer, and it said something like, "Thank you, Mr. Duso." It's like, man. Well,
they still use that same machine.
Yeah, they do. It's from the 40s,
crazy.
I think. But at least they didn't schlep
Right,
mortal remains
right.
threw on the back of a flatbed or something.
But again, it's a palace.
It's a palace, not a castle, because castles are for defense and palaces are for, you know, fancy schmancy. They were very
A
fussy about
palace
that.
is for the people, is how I always, so you can just go in and kind of enjoy it, where a castle is like a
It's
fortress.
fortified.
Right? Yeah.
No, you can't go in a palace. The rich people, you go in a palace, you're going to be cleaning out the crappers, is what you're going to be doing. You're not going in a palace. They
Yes,
go
I
in the palace.
am.
Yeah. All right. Give me a break. So yes,
Moving
they still have the ice palace.
Bob, do you remember the Winter Carnival kazoo band Smitty Foresters did?
Well, hold on. Oh, Jackie boy.
Oh yeah,
Now,
that's
hold
Jack
on.
Skelly.
Hold on. I remember that. Now hold on. There was a waterhole kazoo band. I don't know if you're talking about this. It was in the 80s, and it was Karen Visser and Ken. I can't remember his last name. And Jesus, hold on. I'll think of it eventually. He's the guy that went to Paul Smith, graduated from Paul Smith. Well, what it was, Mike DeWine. You ever know Mike DeWine? Mike DeWine. Mike graduated in the 70s sometime. I'm gonna say 75, 76. And he decided he was around. He decided he was going to start a kazoo band. It's a waterhole kazoo band. Okay. And so they get, oh, that's because I went to Eden, New York. You know Eden, New York, Jackie? It's the kazoo capital of the world. And they have a kazoo factory, I swear to God, that it has the same machines that made them 1,000,000 years ago. Okay. And they're metal and they're really beautiful. Okay, so this guy, one guy from Saranac, he was a water holer. He moved to Eden. He was from there, and he's talking about the kazoo factory. So Mike DeWine decides we're gonna have a kazoo band. Okay, so I think they had 50 kazoos they ordered or something, and of course he's doing it. He's recruiting in the water hole on like Friday night. So you really know there's gonna
Oh,
be.
it was the best of the best.
You're
Then.
gonna get some real longevity there. So I think they had a rehearsal, and I think they had 32 people or something like that. The first rehearsal. The second rehearsal, they're down to about 15 people. The day of the parade, it was Karen, this guy Ken, and I can't remember the third guy's name. I'll think of him in a bit. Yeah, that's what it was. That was the famous waterhole kazoo band. It was the three of them. I don't know if that's what you're thinking of, but the kazoo factory. Who punched that in there? It says the kazoo factory. They do what? Oh, wait.
They're just confirming. Yes, there's a
Oh.
kazoo factory.
Oh.
Been there many times. Chris Ruther said that.
You've been to the kazoo factory many times. Oh,
Goodness.
okay. I didn't know
Jack
him.
Skelly.
Jack.
We did cartoon theme songs. Flintstones. Oh, it jumped. Where'd it go?
No, I do not remember. I do not remember the Paul Smith kazoo band. So I remember the other one.
All right. Scott Van Leer wants to know if the lawn chair ladies begin accepting male members soon. Time to get with the times.
Good point, Scott. I think that, yes, that is what's known as inclusiveness, which I think the lawn chair ladies. Now, let me tell you something. Okay, lawn chair ladies. Brothers of the Bush, okay, my unit, which is people with beards, mustaches, and stuff, we take clean shaven people. We take little kids and women. All right. We are as inclusive as you can get. Okay. The lawn chair ladies, they're probably not going to go for it until they get busted. Some kind of civil rights violation.
Here we go.
Damn well should too.
Moving right along. If there was ever a place where a kazoo band would be a thing, it would be at Paul Smith College.
Oh, Renee.
Yes, Renee, you're
Oh.
not wrong.
Hope you're fine.
Let's see, we got more over here.
Oh, let's see. Anonymous.
Can you talk a little bit about the founding of Carnival? Paul's put school in it?
Oh, well, the founding of Carnival was long before Paul Smith was ever a college. Okay. I mean, the founding was in the 1890s, as I recall. Okay.
This is like the 120.
It was in the very,
because there's a couple of years they didn't do it.
they didn't do it during the war. Yeah, I mean, it's the oldest in America. It's the oldest in the United States, second oldest in America, North America. Quebec is the only one older, but it started, I mean, for obvious reasons, because it's all about basically cabin fever, right? And
Absolutely.
the old winters were brutal. I mean, actually, the guys who were in Paul Smith's in the 70s, Jack Skelly and that bunch, Paul, I mean, you know, if you recall, it would always seem that the coldest, coldest day of the year. I say the coldest day of the year traditionally, if you'd like to know, is January 13th or 14th. And I don't know that because I'm a genius, although I might be, but I know that because that's my birthday. It's the 13th. So if anyone's interested, the 13th of January, I love silver and turquoise. Man, just saying.
Good to know.
Yeah. But you know, you get to February and in those old days, I mean, you know, it's October, it started to get miserable, and then winter is going to run till April, you know, back then. And I mean, we all have stories of, you know, these huge April storms, and it start to get nice and then, you know, forget it in turn. But those old winters, and first day of registration, second semester registration always seemed to be, if not the coldest day of the year, brutal. And that was, if you guys will recall, that's when no one's cars started. Okay, so you always had, because we all had old crappy cars because no one had any money. So you had to have the guy whose car started to get a ride out to school, and the students didn't make registration, and those were really tough times. So when you got the carnival, you know, it was yeehaw. Now it's a very different event too, because it's 10 days. So it's really, you know, it's really changed immensely, and it's I think it was a heck of a lot more fun too, because you got more time to do it. But that's all I can tell you about the origins. But Paul Smith had nothing to do with the original carnival. You know, it was just a towny event. Resume writing. Oh, yeah, steak, including punctuation was a temple. Jesus, who's that? Oh, Mark.
Yeah.
Oh, I did okay, but the class moaning reactions when you passed back the papers was so loud it turned into one of my greatest memories. Well, I'm glad your greatest, Mark, I'm glad that one of your greatest memories of Paul Smith was moaning. Although the fact it was taking place in a class over grades is probably a little less exotic and erotic than you would hope for. But yeah, I think I was stricter back then.
Do you know how long they've been doing the themes? Like the,
No, I have no idea.
I don't
can't-
remember them not having a theme.
No,
but-
you wouldn't. It's, I mean, it, you know, if it's, I mean, I'm trying to remember, I got out of service in 72 and 73 was my first carnival. And before that, I didn't pay attention to the themes. And, you know,
When I was a kid and we would come up and go to a parade, I don't remember there being themes. There probably was, but I was a kid. I was watching a parade in the winter, so
why
it was
would
weird.
you pay
You know?
attention? You know,
And
we didn't
then-
either.
I moved up here in '88, and it seems like we've always had a theme
Oh, I'm sure
since
that's
I've been
right.
here.
But yeah, but the other thing you got to know about carnival is that it died off. The parade just completely croaked out. Because okay, here, let me a background. You want to know the carnival, the parade was sponsored by a guy named William Morris, the William Morris Agency, the biggest booking agency, because they ran Will Rogers, the hospital, and he paid for it out of pocket. And that was
That's how we had all those.
You had the huge floats and the
Right.
stars and all that. It's costing a fortune. Oh, wait a second. Who are those guys? I know the guy on the left, and I can't remember his name. Anyhow, so and then he died, and his daughter was paying for it, and then his daughter died, and the money wasn't there, and the parade tanked. It was terrible. And they tried a commercial parade, some crappy ice candy company. Oh, Jesus, it was awful. And then what happened is everyone realized, well, guess what? You got no money, and if you want a parade, guess who's going to put it on? So it's all townies. That's who does it, and it's fabulous. I mean, you get second grade from the
Right.
Petrovis School and the Cub Scouts, and then the just local lunatics that are doing it on their own. But the parade, a short parade is an hour and a half.
Absolutely.
They've gone up to 2.5 hours, and in the town.
Superhero year was an hour because so many groups had bowed out because
Oh,
it was so cold.
That was the 13 below day.
Yeah,
And that, by the way, in case anyone's wondering, was my favorite parade. We were in that. That was my favorite parade because everyone that was out in the streets wanted to be there.
Yep.
And they all gutted it out. There was the least attendance, but the most fun. They went to 30 below that night. What else you got?
Some of these folks are from the class of 2010 in this particular photo. Just one of my favorites.
Oh, that's Parade
Yes,
goer.
I am the
What?
oldest parade
You're
goer.
the oldest parade goer? You're not the oldest parade goer. What are you talking about? You're not older than
There
me.
used to be a William Morris sign at the park where the carousel is now.
Yes, yeah, William Morris, Morris. And that was the William Morris agency, the booking agency, and they're the people that subsidize. Yeah, he also subsidized the playground, the real philanthropist. And that, yes, that's who it was.
Megan Dills,
Yeah, sure.
Kaylee Orzliak, and I feel like that's another Megan.
Might be.
Oh, I can't remember her first name. Oh, I feel terrible.
I don't know any of them. I know who Megan Dills was, but I didn't know her. The oldest parade goer. Oh, my word.
That was Pirate Year, if you couldn't
I
tell.
do remember.
And that's this year's Ice Palace.
Which is gorgeous.
I can't wait for it to be lit up. I'm so excited to see
Your
it. with lights.
classmate named William Morris stole that sign. Well, I'm glad your classmate wasn't named William Morse and stole that sign, because
Right,
you
that
know
would.
it wouldn't have said a lot about his spelling. Hey, Bob.
Okay.
Alan, wait, of course I remember you. Yes, hold on, stop.
I'm not moving.
No, oh, I don't remember that. Oh my, I don't remember the thermometer. Of course I remember you. Yeah, and you and Steve were in the UUs, and you had the camp that you, Rondak, was that the name of the camp? I can't remember. How you doing, by the way? I see you on Facebook. I know you had some tough times, but you seem to be doing well. But I don't remember that bit about the thermometer.
Yeah, Mr. Seidenstein. I remember you started to teach in the day.
All right,
All right, cool.
sure. I think she graduated 73. She graduated in 73, Jane? I think that was it. I'm not sure. I think my first semester was your last. Around there. If not, it was 74.
So aside from the parade, what other activities do you like to do?
Well, there's Arctic golf.
Okay.
That's hysterical. What else do I? Well, honestly, trying to get my unit together. I go to the coronation. This year it's going to be virtual.
Yeah, it's closed. Yeah.
That's okay. I'm not a fireworks guy, actually. I don't care about that. I go to the fireworks to see people.
Sure.
But other than that, I'm trying to think what else we used to do. Well, there were snowshoe races, but I don't do that anymore. I would go out, but I guess that doesn't. Well, they used to have a fabulous spaghetti dinner that was a fundraiser for the skating club. Oh, the skating show
That
at the
was fun,
Civic
yeah.
Center. That was really fun.
The Rotary show.
Yes, the Rotary show.
Have you ever
Have I ever-
entertained?
I did, actually, a few years ago.
Did you do your magic?
Yeah, I did. And if you ever saw the Rotary show, it always ends with the Rotarians coming out dressed like women. Okay, I think they like it too much. I mean, they're really like camping it up, real full drag thing.
I actually know a former vice president from Paul Smith's that actually joined the Rotary in Lake Placid because he didn't want to be in the
Who
Rotary
was
shirt.
that?
Ray Agnew.
Oh, I would figure. Yeah, those guys had no shame whatsoever. Let's see.
There was one thing you could bring
Chris.
back to Winter Carnival
No,
that doesn't occur anymore. What would it be?
you know what, Chris? They have more things than they ever had.
Mhm.
So there's nothing that I would say, I would change. It's really a heck of a lot of fun. And
It really
actually,
is.
I've run in, wait a second, I think, yes, didn't I run into you and Megan? I don't know, Addie, was she born at the parade? I think at Berkeley Square or something, going up the hill.
Yuppers.
Yeah, okay. Good. Oh, yeah. Camp Unirondack. Yeah, okay.
Nice. All right. Do we have any more questions for Bob? He's got answers, I'm sure.
No, or not.
We'll just make something up.
Yeah, something, certainly a witty retort, if not an actual answer. But
Well, it seems like our gang is pretty quiet
wait a
tonight.
minute, Jack Skelly is not gonna put in more of his 2 cents, or where's Pillis? I can't believe Pillis hasn't said anything. What's
Oh,
happened?
That's not
Oh,
what I
wait a
wanted to do.
second. What time is it? It's like going on 8 o'clock. Pillis is probably asleep.
Well, he's an hour behind us. He's in Texas.
Yeah.
Gen
then he's-
Route. Does PSC still have Prince and Princess for Carnival? Wow,
Yes.
Jen, I can answer that for you. Yes, we do.
It alternates, remember?
It does. And we have a prince this year. Last year's princess, I'm gonna see if I can do right by her. She didn't get any fanfare because
Well, there was
what
no-
happened for Carnival last year was, nothing.
Right.
A few of the groups recorded their routines, like the high school group. I don't know if the Pages did or not.
What, last year?
Yeah,
I
they
don't know.
recorded it outside of Mount Pisgah Lodge. And then, put it on social media and things. Lawn chair ladies recorded, but there was only like maybe a dozen or so of us that recorded that.
Well, we printed our money up.
You did?
We printed money, yes. Yes, I still have probably only 300 or 400 bills.
From last year?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
But yes, we do still have a prince and princess from Paul Smith's, alternating with North Country, of course.
And I assume Jen was a princess.
She was.
I have a vague memory of that. She was
I
also.
wonder what happened to her crown.
Oh, that's right. Wait a second. That's right. You wrote an essay on that because you were screaming, "I'm the princess." You got loaded. Was that a fight with a boy or something? Was that what that was?
Jen? No, I would think not Jen.
Oh yeah.
I think someone took it
No.
while she was in the,
No.
or maybe we
No,
threatened to
because
take it.
hold on.
I
I
can't
think
remember.
it was
Or was that
Sue
Mallory?
Dyer. Was that the one that was furious that she lost the crown? It was someone in the chamber, I think. They said, "What kind of princess is she? She lost the crown." She was mortified. Wait.
It
Yes.
was Jen.
Yes, I remember that. But on a positive note, I remember. Do you remember the poem you wrote for class? You did very well. You're a very good student. But the poem you wrote, and I can't remember except you talked about something about your mother coming from Peru, and I didn't know it wasn't the town. I thought it was the country. But do you remember that? I mean that for some reason is rattling around the inner recesses of my. Yeah.
Well, there was a series of princesses from Paul Smith's.
I don't ask.
Yes. How do you remember that? Yeah. How do you?
My mind is just like, it's like someone's crazy grandmother's attic. It's just full of all kinds of stuff that pops out, like the Jack Skelly story with Ed Woodward, or these various crazy things so I don't know that, I do remember the poem, and I do remember the essay you wrote, which, as I recall, you got an A in it, talking about "I am the princess."
Yeah. That's funny. There was a series of princesses that couldn't hold on to their crown.
But they couldn't hold on to their liquor, is what it amounted to.
Wow. That's not always the case. Jack, I gave you permission to speak. If you have something you'd like to share.
Well, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Unfortunately, we can, Jack.
Oh, awesome. Bob, I don't know how you remember all these little stories about me and Woody and some of the classes and one of the questions, do you remember when the guys in front of the water hole threw beer cans at the Girl Scouts as they marched in the Winter Carnival parade? Do you remember that incident?
No. Luckily, I missed that one. It must have been a real class bunch of guys, huh?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Did
it
you-
was...
Did you know them?
No, I didn't.
Wait, was this back when you were a student?
No, this was when I was on the faculty.
No, I missed that.
And I very distinctly remember the kazoo, the Smitty's boys with the kazoo, and we did the cartoons, we did the Jetsons and the Flintstones, and I don't know how many different cartoon theme songs we did on the kazoo. I very distinctly remember it.
I'm glad you that. The other thing I'll tell you, to be honest, is a lot of times during the parades, I didn't watch the parade because once the parade's over, the street's empty, right? And so I would walk around. I'd walk all up and down town because then I'd run into people because I wasn't going to see them afterwards. And a lot of them were people that only came back for Carnival. So the only time, and some of them, some of the older ones, the only time they were out was the parade. you know? So I missed most parades, to be honest with you, you know, it's like, it just, that's what I was doing, you know, was going around meeting people that, you know, wasn't gonna see for another year. Oh, by the way, wait a second. So Skelly, I gotta tell you, because this is the great story. I had Jack in my first class, and that was in the winter of '73. And then I think I had you again. It was gonna be the spring semester of '74. Okay, I didn't have you in the fall. I think that's right. And
That is right.
okay, and the story with Jack is that, okay, God, I don't know how I ever survived, but Jack at the time was dating his then girlfriend, current wife, the long suffering Sharon. Anyhow, and she was a legal secretary, and she typed his papers on an IBM Selectric. And back then, we didn't require typed papers. I think we did for term papers, but I mean, Jesus, you know, you have 120 students, and I mean, half of them don't even know how to hold on to a pen right. You know, the illegible scrawl, aside from the fact once you can read it, it was still some rough going. And so he had these perfect papers. I mean, they weren't perfect themselves, but they were so beautiful. And his wife had proofread them, that he got an automatic B or B plus just for legibility. It was astounding. I remember I'd see his papers and I'd almost burst into tears. You were the highlight. You were the highlight of my life back then. Plus, you laughed at all my jokes. Right?
Yeah, but you know, not only was it typed on an IBM Selectric, she even had the italics ball. Remember how the Selectric worked with the ball? And she typed it, and she had a blue ribbon. So not only were the papers typed on the Selectric, but they were also in a blue text color.
Well, you know, I think after I would read your papers, I'd sort of blank out because I was in this sort of state of ecstasy. You know, it's like the thing that saints would get into. They get all crazy and they'd be in a cave and they wouldn't eat for like, you know, 6 weeks or something. And next thing you know, they're like talking to God and God's talking to them. It was kind of like that with your papers. They were almost like some kind of divine intervention. And so I can't remember them. I can't remember the color and the print. I just remember the experience of, you know, this sort of being suffused with this type of very otherworldly warmth. And then the B would automatically go on the paper. Well, we didn't have B's. We did it with numbers, but you'd get an 80 or an 85. Yeah.
Well, just for a point of clarification, I graduated in '72, but I came back to Smitty's for a year.
Paul, we can hear you.
I came back to Smitty's after one semester at NC State. And of course, I was missing the main person in Lake Placid, AKA Sharon. And so I went back to Smitty's for a year and got things like American literature and history and sociology and psychology and all these other things out of the way. So that explains why you started in '73, and that explains why I was in your first class. And I'll never forget the Tim Vale story about King Kong.
Well, and then there was the follow-up story the next semester. Should I tell the King Kong story? Is that considered inappropriate on this?
I don't know the
medium?
King Kong story.
What do you think, Jack?
Oh, I think you should tell it, Bob.
All right. So the King Kong, there was an essay called, I think it was just called King Kong. X.J. Kennedy maybe wrote it. I can't remember. And it was in the essay text, and it was all about the movie and Christ. It was the Norton anthology of literature. I wouldn't have picked that. It was chosen already. Oh my God, most of the stuff was unreadable. I apologize for assigning that stuff to you, Jack. But anyhow, and this particular, it was one of those pedantic essays about the film and Fay Ray and all the symbolism and meanwhile I got this class of jamokes. They were all first semester freshmen just coming in, except for Jack, and it was all male. It was the only all male classes I ever had. And so one of the things in there was he was talking about that the essential, I guess, conflict of the story is King Kong is in love with Fay Ray, and yet he has this quote, they can't consummate the relationship. but this is Paul Smith's freshman, right? Consummate, consummate. So I said, now, what's consummate mean? And Tim Vale, in his very subtle manner, said, you couldn't stick it in, man. And yeah, and that about tied me in knots, of course, because I was just a beginning teacher and had no idea what I was doing and no presence in front of a class and nervous as hell and too many students. Yeah. And then, okay, now I'm going to follow up with the Tim Vale story. And I said, Tim Vale is, I would think, a dear friend. So that's first semester. Okay. And second semester, my first semester teaching. So I survived. Okay. Barely. I survived. And now Tim was never mean or anything. He just was a funny kid. And he'd say things totally out of context. And I was, trying to control a class or do something. I don't know what I was trying to survive is what I was trying to do. So second semester, we used to have, if you remember, I don't know, that they didn't, Dean Rutherford did all registration. There are no computers, right? And he did it with those 3x5 cards and a big chart. You remember that? And he'd do you remember that or no? Jack?
Yes, I remember it.
Okay. So, and he never had conflicts and he had it all figured out. But anyhow, it was all done by hand. And then you had these cards. That was you picked them up and they were each class. You had the student's name and his major and whatever the heck it was. And those are your cards. That was that was for each class. And then if you had an imbalance on back-to-back classes, you just take the guy that we'd have in the English department, we get together, and Charlie Allen was in charge, and say, okay, so you've got 5 more than he does, so you just take 5 off the bottom first day of class and take those guys and they go over to the other class and give them their card. All right, so we get to the second semester, and all I'm doing is, I'm praying I don't have Tim Vale in class. Okay, I'm not a religious guy, but I'm wearing a Star of David. I'm burning votive candles. I'm trying to find who the hell the saint of classrooms is. The whole schmear. So, and I get my cards. I go through every one of them because all I'm looking for is Tim Vale. Okay, no Tim Vale. It's like there is a God. Okay, first day of class. Okay, I'm in my class. It's another all-male class. Knock on the door. I open the door, and there is Tim Vale, and he's with like 5 other kids that got out of another, Bob Leffler's class. And Tim Vale said, well, hey, he goes, Mr. Leffler said if anyone wanted to get into Seidenstein's class, they could volunteer. Here I am. I was like, oh my God, another ride, okay? And okay, so now here's the story. Do you remember this story, Jack? With Tim in my next class? Jack?
I don't remember.
Okay, so the second class, and Tim is like hanging me up from time to time, and all of a sudden, apropos of nothing, okay? He just, in the middle of class, he goes, hey man, how do you know you got elephants humping in your backyard? And I knew the answer to it. It took me about a second, and I said, your garbage can liners are missing. Okay. And well, when he came on, everyone was like, and then I came back with a response and it stripped his gears. He never did it again after that. He became the Christ child. Okay. But yeah, so that was my friend Tim.
So
Great guy.
it looks like Bob Renee has asked Bob another question.
My favorite caper pulled off by Paul Smith students, Winter Carnival or campus. I'll tell you what it was. Jack, were you there in 77?
Yeah, I was on the faculty then.
Okay, so I come in on a Monday in the fall. That's when streaking was popular, right? You remember that? And they had streaked the girls' dorm. Do you remember that?
No, I don't remember that.
Phyllis was on campus. I don't know if he's talking or not, but Paul, are you there? But because I remember, because I came out and these students, I had an 8 o'clock class. It's real early, right? And these students were like, hey, do you hear? They streaked the girls' dorm. And that's when Norm Darling and Margie, they were living in remember them? they were living in the girls' dorm, and she was like the Miss Dorm lady. And yeah, and they all peeled in, and the usual thing. Oh, someone had a bugle. That's right. One of them had a bugle, and they're like buck naked with blogging boots, and I don't know if they had masks or what. I know Phyllis was there at the time, but I remember thinking, Jesus, whatever you do, don't make a big deal of it. Just ignore them. Pretend it didn't happen. And that's what happened. They didn't do anything. And then do you remember some guy streaked the assembly? You remember that one?
No, I
Same
don't.
time, yeah, they're beginning the assembly, and all of a sudden this guy comes sprinting in, no clothes, I think logging boots again, and a mask. He did that. Yeah. Yeah, it was. So I think that, I don't know, Renee, if that's the caper I remember the most, but off the top of my head, I do recall that. There were.
Bob, do you remember when Pillis and I did Elwood and Jake Blues at one of the mixers?
Do I remember who was that wasn't a mixer. That was the faculty Bop Till You Drop Hop that yours truly organized. And that was where it was a faculty staff, hands across the campus, Bop Till You Drop Hop is what it was called. And that's where it's $5 and no administrators were involved or invited, except they were unofficially, some of them showed up, and that you and Paul did the Blues Brothers, and we had the Easy Street Band playing. You remember that? And
yes,
you had the handcuffs. You had the handcuffs. B, you had the briefcase, and C, you had a buzz. You guys were drinking martinis. You were loaded when you got there.
I can't imagine.
Do you remember that?
well, and also don't forget we had a harmonica.
And a harmonica.
And don't forget, Pillis ripped his pants. Wasn't it Pillis ripped his pants? Up the back? Isn't that what happened? Huh?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh no. And you guys had actually watched the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had the movie down.
And you know that we actually rehearsed.
I know.
And for a really long time, the picture that was taken was on my refrigerator for just about ever.
Well, you want to know the story behind another story, show you how things work. Renee, this is not a caper, but this is old Paul Smith. This was in the 80s sometime. So Gary Jones was in charge of the food service. Remember Saga?
Yep.
And Gary was an alum, right? He was a great guy. And so we collected whatever the hell it was. It was $5 a piece. And the staff didn't pay. And it was a huge turn. And we had, you remember that? They had cheese, they had wings, I think they had chips, and then they had kegs of beer, right? And so at some point, Gary calls me over. He says, "You're tapped out. I think you're gonna go. The beer is going like the wide Missouri, right? And so we're gonna, the money's gonna be gone, And I said, who cares? Just whatever they're doing, do it. And if I got to pay for it, I'll pay for it. But we're not stopping it. It was just too much fun, right? That's when we had blindfold darts. Do you remember that? That was another one of the contests during that. And it was blindfold darts. And then we had PhD something or other, pinball, I think. It was PhD pinball contest. And Pillis took we got a mortar board and he put a propeller on top. Do you remember that? He made that. That was what the PhD winner of the pinball contest got. So anyhow, Monday I went in to settle up with Gary. And he's like, well, let's see. He says, okay. He said, now, all right. He said, you gave us $250 we collected from you. And we're not going to count the cheese or the chips. And well, the wings were X amount. And you went through 3.5 kegs or something. It really swilled a lot. And we'll call it 250, he said. So he called it even, but it was way over. Yeah, that was a hoot. We knew how to party in those days, Jackie.
Yeah, hey, Paul's been awful quiet.
Can you hear me now?
Unfortunately, I can. Yeah. How you doing?
Oh, finally I'm on. I don't know how to run a computer. So it says that you wanted to hear my voice, and I finally got my wife, Pat, up from downstairs, and she got me to talking to you.
Well, let me tell you something right now.
I'm going to tell you something right
No,
now.
you're not.
Supposed
I
to
gotta
be
tell you right
talking
now.
about.
What
We're
the hell? I'm
supposed to
sorry.
be talking about Winter Carnival.
Look, you wanna,
And I
Are
have a
you-
question for
are
you.
you up here? Just 1 second, because Heather, I can't do computers either. This is Heather's computer. I have no idea how the hell to do this stuff. And Heather said, well, Paul Pillis did it. And I said, Paul Pillis didn't do it. Paul Pillis can barely work a Zippo lighter. I said, it's his wife. His wife did it. So there. All right, what's your question, Paul?
Okay,
Are you-
now quiet. I have a question. Get
It's
back
not-
to Winter Carnival.
Yeah.
Not all the cops were local good old boys.
Oh, you're talking about Oxford throwing you out of
Oxford,
town?
tell me about Chief Oxford.
Well, I'll tell you about Paul Pillis. I'm walking up the street with my friend Berta, and we're by what was the Oxford Market there, up by the Bloomingdale Avenue, right? There's that parking lot there. It was St. Regis Hotel. Okay,
Right.
it's Broadway and Bloomingdale Avenue, and Paul Pillis is walking toward us with a quart of Jack Daniels stuffed in his pants, if you'll recall. And I introduced you to my friend. Do you remember? You probably don't remember this. And you said, can you do the polka? And she said, yes, I can. And you polkaed in the parking lot. Do you remember that?
Absolutely. And I
Yes,
don't really remember the bottle of Jack Daniels, but I have a
I-
picture on my desk at home of exactly that bottle stuffed in my wool pants.
Oh my God.
And then after you left us, you kept walking and you ran into Oxford and he kicked you out of town.
He
Right.
did. He
Yeah.
did. After I went, do you remember Discount Dan's right next to the town hall? Cheapest liquor in town.
Oh, yeah.
So
okay.
I go in the middle of Winter Carnival and get a fresh bottle of Kessler's whiskey. Ask Bud Z about that. He and I drank Kessler's. And I walk out of Discount Dan's, and that son of a gun of a chief, he looks at me, and it was in a brown paper bag, just like any drunk would have. And he takes it. He said, kid, show me what's in that bag. And I had to take it out of the bag. I hadn't even popped the seal on top yet. Well, he does it for me. And as I'm standing right there, he takes that fresh quart of Kessler's, turns it over, and it's just running on the sidewalk right between my feet. And he said, kid, start heading out of town. That's our out of town cop.
Heck of guy. Yeah. Yeah. Well, forget that. And do you remember your dad and you and me watching a woodsman's exhibition in the park? And I had a pint of brandy. Do you remember
He loved
that?
brandy. He loved it. Yep.
Yes, I know. I know he loved brandy. You know how I know that? It's because your old man and you drained the damn thing on me. I thought you'd take a civil sip, but I got these two Polskas there. Your dad stiff wristed that sucker and half of it was gone in one chug. It was spectacular. He not only loved brandy, but he really loved free brandy.
Heather, do things like this still happen at Smitty's?
Absolutely not.
I tell you, it's a dull bunch, Paul. They don't make them the way they used to. That's, you of course remember Bill Gokey.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah.
I remember him very well.
Dr. Buxton had him so fired up, wired up. The man was just a nervous wreck.
Oh,
For
he
fear
was.
that he'd have to buy another case of toilet paper, but had to go to the old man's office for permission to buy the case of toilet paper.
I'll tell you something else. Okay, you got there after they tore the plantation down, 67.
I watched old man Donaldson tear it down. So it was the summer of 67. I watched
Right.
it happen.
Well, I was working in maintenance then.
Right.
I helped tear it. Well, if you remember, Dr. Buxton wouldn't throw anything out. Okay?
Yeah. All
And there
right.
was only one way to get in and out, which was in front of the old man's office there, right in the admin building. So Gokey was also terrified. He couldn't throw anything out. So when buildings would get torn down or burned down or whatever, they'd move this stuff. But they used to buy stuff in a lot, surplus, right? You remember that?
Oh, yes.
Okay,
Great-
so if
Great
but it
Tom
came-
Twombly would wind up down in Albany bidding
Right.
on the lots.
and that's why he'd end up getting all the premium jackets and the cameras and everything else, right? Because it'd be a lot. So, you know, so if they wanted a generator, it came with all this other stuff that they didn't need. Well, they had it all stashed in that storeroom, which I think used to be the original cafeteria there. I'm not sure if that's right, way back like in the 40s. And so I'm in there and and it's dusty and crazy. And they've got, I swear to God, this is the truth. They've got this one box, it's whack bathing suits, okay? Whack bathing suits from World War II. They're made out of wool, okay? They didn't have, yeah. And not only are they made out of wool, the goddamn things are this thick. And I'm thinking, whew, and rough. You know what I mean? I'm thinking, yeah, they really made them pretty tough. So they have that, they have boxing headgear, all right? No boxing gloves, boxing headgear. And then they have 2 portable field privies, okay? From World War II. Field privies. So Gokey comes in and he's a mess as usual. He's really nerved out because he doesn't know where he's going to put this stuff and he can't. And I remember he says, yep. He says, look at this. He says, 2 portable field shitters. He says, my God, they don't make them like that no more, and no home should be without one.
Oh, I could hear it like it was yesterday, Bob.
Oh, he was a delightful man. He was wonderful. And then we were out at White Pine and the water got plugged up. They took it right from the lake. And what had happened was they had the pipe was on wooden supports. One of them had rusted out or rotted out or something. And so Gokey wanted to know how far out it went in the lake, okay, to figure where you go to get the thing raised. It was him, me, and his son were gonna go swimming to see if we could retrieve it. And so he goes and talks to the guy that put it in originally, right? Find out how long it was, the line was. And he comes back and he's shaking as he's smoking a cigar, right? And he's got his dog, remember Picker, the fat beagle?
Oh,
Picker,
yeah.
and when Gokey would tell a joke, he'd poke the dog like the dog was getting the punchlines. So Picker's there. He's got the cigar. He's wired out, and he comes back, and we're like, okay, you know, how far? And he says, I talked to him, and you know what he said? He said it goes out in the lake a piece. He says a piece goes out in the lake a piece. Gokey's just like, you know, there was another one. It was one disaster after another, but he was a lovely guy, Gokey. He was a wonderful, wonderful person.
Yeah.
I liked him immensely. Oh my God. Irreverent as all get out. Funny. Yeah.
He came to us from the St. Lawrence Seaway. He helped do all the landscaping in the mid-50s when they were just tying up and ready to open up the St. Lawrence Seaway.
Well,
Good guy.
you know what he was trained to do? He was like now I can't remember. It was either Pritt and Whitney. It was one of the big airplane manufacturers.
Pratt and Whitney.
Pratt and Whitney was one, but there was also LeMay or Curtis. Was that a
Curtis Wright.
Curtis Wright? I think that's who he apprenticed with them, and he was some kind of designer. He was like a draftsman of some sort. And then he went and he was older when he was married already. I think he was like 27 or something when he went in World War II. So after he got out of the war, then he came to Paul Smith's, right, as a student. And then he went to the Southwest. It was an interesting story. His kid remember Bill Jr. had asthma, terrible asthma, and they used to go to the Southwest, remember? And,
Yes, I do.
right, because it was all the air was, well, the thing is at that point, Southwest had been settled so much by all these idiots that had non-native grasses, right? They got Kentucky bluegrass and God knows what else. And so it was worse than here. He got down there and the kid was even sicker. And so he came back and that's how he ended up staying. Oh my God. Yeah. You remember the people, the characters, Dave Caldwell. Remember Dave Caldwell?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Now, do you know the story with Dave that he was supposed to pay Dr. Buxton rent he ran the snack bar, right? And he was
Right.
supposed to pay Dr. Buxton rent and he never paid him rent, right? You know, he didn't make any money. He was living off his wife's salary, right? She was a teacher, you know, Dave. And anyhow, and so Dr. B would call him up and go up one side of him, down the other. And it's like a dance, right? And then he would come out, he referred to himself as Dr. Buxton's whipping boy. Okay. And he would come out, because Eileen told me this. He'd come out of the office and he'd say, okay, Eileen, he'd say, the whipping boy has done his job. Everybody else is going to be cool for a while now. And then go back to the snack bar again. Oh my God. Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Well, folks,
I was just gonna say that we should let Heather get some sleep tonight.
yeah, I got a shovel in the morning.
Who's we?
You and I could go all night.
You always use the imperial we, Paul. You know, it's just you really do. You gotta relax on that, man.
Yeah,
you
see,
supposed
we're
to get a foot of
losing our
snow, Heather?
guests, see. They're all ready to go to sleep. Even Zoot Simmons
Zoot
has to
Simmons.
boogie.
All right.
Great to see you, Bob. Catch you at the parade. Yep.
See you, Zoot. Good man.
So back when there was a comment about the students not doing those types of things anymore, it's because the best professors to influence the students all retired.
Or
So,
resigned.
so I just want to say to everybody, thanks so much for joining our Smitty Story Hour, hour and a half, you know, whatever. When you're retired, I guess it doesn't matter. so
Well, it does
much,
to
yeah.
Paul because he's got to go to sleep. It's past his bedtime now, right?
He's got another hour. Anyway, thanks everyone for joining us for the Smitty Story Hour. We hope to see you at Carnival. If you're going to be in the area, Hotel Saranac on parade day at 11 o'clock. Family friendly. There's also a cash bar, but that's on the other side of the room. You'll recall how that works. Of course, the parade's at 1. We also have this Saturday is the annual chocolate fest that the Paul Smith Boosters is hosting at Romano's. So check that out if you can. And on both Saturdays of Carnival, we have the Woodsman Team Expo at Riverside Park, 11 o'clock. So come and see us. If not, if you can't join us in person, how about the next Smitty Story Hour? That'll take place March 10th, 7 p.m. Eastern. And it's going to be about the Leaning Pine.
And who's doing that?
Well, a couple of gentlemen that are here, I think Jack Skelly. Paul, are you doing that with us as well?
Oh, I might add a little to it from a silvicultural standpoint.
And Jim Voorhees and Kirk Stager is going to be in on that one as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So thanks again so much for joining us, everyone. Thanks, Bob, for being here.
My
Thank you, Bob.
pleasure.
Thank you, everybody.
Bob, thanks. It was a pleasure to see you and chat with you again.
Always is, Jackie boy. Always is. You too, Paul.
Thanks, Bob.
Yeah.
Thanks, Steve and Heather. Good job tonight.
When are you coming back here, by the way?
April 1st. I don't want to miss the Sugar Bush breakfast. I hope to see you there.
How appropriate is that, April 1st?
I get it. Just keep it between you and I. April Fool's Day.
Yeah, good,
Yeah.
good man, Paul. You really quick on the draw there, I'll tell you.
Oh my goodness. Thanks so much, everybody. Hope you have a good night.
All right, see you guys.
Thanks. Bye.